All right, welcome to another episode of Investing with Quito. I've got my co-host here, Jeremy, and
Hey
we got
guys.
our special returning guest, Taylor, whom we had on the show before, and just wanted since the episode, we want to bring him on and give him an update what's going on with his life and things that he's going through, and how you know we're sharing his journey, and it's very inspiring. So, Taylor, welcome to the show.
Hi Keto. Hi Jeremy. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate this is my second time on your guys' show, and I just you guys are awesome, obviously. Appreciate you guys inviting me on.
Yeah, thank you. And like I said, as you know, I've been working with you for a couple of years now, and love what you're doing with me. And since the last episode, I wanna have you take us through what's going on in your life, what has changed, and what's transpiring right now, and kind of share with us what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. So, last time I was on the show, obviously, we talked about creative finance and insurance, and since then, I actually had a pretty life-changing event, a couple life-changing events occur. Let's see. But first of all, I just want to say, I'm coming to you guys live from my garage, so forgive the clutter in the back, but we live out on
No,
a
I just want to say, Taylor, that's awesome because you're like, yeah, I can't drive anywhere, and I don't know if I can make it on the show, but I'm a go-getter. I'm gonna like do it
Right.
from my
Yeah. Like I'm doing
garage,
this
and
from my garage.
yeah,
So
you're stellar.
yeah. Yeah, thank you. We've got three little girls. We've got identical twin girls that are 18 months old, and then our oldest daughter is 3 years old. So I would do it from my office inside, but they're usually knocking on the door, So,
yeah.
but it's nice because I like to work outside. We live on a farm. It's beautiful. But yeah, it's peaceful out here. But yeah, I guess so I'll just dive right in. I think March 22nd, I was actually in Billings for a real estate investor meeting, that we do monthly, that you guys put on monthly. And I was, excited to be there with you guys. Obviously, I like to try to make those as much as possible. Um, and I was on my way back. I just tried to make a day trip of it. I live in Townsend, Montana, well, just south of Townsend, Montana. You guys are in Billings, Montana. It's about 3 hours away. But so I was coming back. I was trying to beat. There was a snowstorm coming through to Bozeman, and I was like, okay, it was like 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, I got to make it back, and so I was just getting ready to head through the Bozeman Pass. I went through Livingston, and for those that don't know, like the Bozeman Pass between Livingston and Bozeman is kind of a treacherous pass. It's
Hmm.
like, it's through hills and the mountains. Basically, it cuts through the mountains. But um, yeah, so I was going past Livingston, and I look down, and I see 65 miles till empty, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like should I get gas? Can I make it? And there's a storm coming, and I'm like, okay, like I think I can make it. And then I was like, I passed all my exits, and just something told me like, no, you should get gas. You should turn around and get gas. So I actually ended up using one of those authorized, turnarounds. So don't tell anybody, I'm an insurance agent, but I ended up turning around there, and I'm really glad that I did. As I was going around the exit 333, my vision started to like shift, and it was like, the way that I can describe it is I felt like drunk, and I couldn't see, my phone. I was like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And I'm driving while this is happening. And let's see, like last year, I actually got diagnosed with hypertension. So that's high blood pressure. And with that, they call it the silent killer, because, you can have a stroke, you can have a heart attack. But so my immediate reaction was, oh my gosh, I'm having a stroke. So I, turned, was on the exit, pulled into the gas station, went inside, and during this whole time, I'm trying to call my wife. I can't see my phone. I'm like calling other people, and I'm like, no, I'm trying to call my wife. But um, So I go inside and talk to the clerk, and he said you came in and you were like going blah blah blah, like you weren't really making a lot of sense. And he's like, I thought you were drunk. And I was like, well, I felt drunk. But then I kind of made out the words like help. And he said, your eyes rolled in the back of your head and you fell back, and you actually, I thought you were going to hit your head on the ground, but you fell into the mop bucket that I was using to mop up before he closed up. And he actually said I pulled in like 2 minutes before he was getting ready to close up. And he goes, I almost closed up early that night. And so just want to talk about God's provisions, God's grace. He has his hands over this all over this whole thing. And so that's one thing that I was really grateful for, is that number one, he was open. Number two,
Hmm.
uh fell in the mop bucket that broke my fall. But so I wake up and the EMTs are there, and they're saying, hey, are you okay, are you okay? And like, um can you describe what you're feeling, like what's going on? And I'm like, oh, I felt like drunk. And they said, well, you had a tonic clonic. And I'm like, I'm thinking like a gin and tonic. And I'm like, no, I don't drink. Like, there's no way. Like, what's that? And they said, no, a tonic clonic is a seizure. And so I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay, well, what does that mean? And they said, well, we got to get you to the emergency room. And so they did. And on the way to the emergency room in Livingston, I had another seizure. And they kind of got me stabilized, took me into the emergency room. Uh, During this whole time, of course, my wife is calling me, wondering where I'm at. She knew I was supposed to be home by then, but she also knows that I'm a pretty friendly person. Sometimes I stop off and I just make friends with random strangers, and get to talking. And so she just figured that was, something I did, is I just pulled off to get some food and, just struck up a conversation. But so just want to shout out to my wife for being so strong during this whole ordeal, but,
Hmm.
um, yeah, so they took me to Livingston Hospital emergency room. They did a brain scan, did an MRI, and they said, we need to have contrast so that we can see. It looks like you have a mass in your brain, but we can't really make it out. So we need to life flight you from Belgrade to Billings. So they actually loaded me up, put me on a jet in Belgrade, and life flighted me to Billings. And
Wow.
I just also want to take this opportunity to shout out, the EMTs, the nurses, everybody that came together. Some of them, they're teams that don't work together all the time. But it happened so fast, like everything, like before I knew it, I was in Billings, and I'm like, whoa, like this is crazy, but a shout out to, any medical specialists or, doctors, nurses, anybody out there that does that for their day job. You guys are amazing. You don't get enough thanks. But yeah, so fast forward to Billings, being in the, Billings clinic. They did another MRI with some contrast, and they came to me and they said, hey, you've got what's, basically it's a mass on your brain, on your left parietal lobe. And they said, it's about the same size and shape of a golf ball.
Mm.
And and so I said to the doc, I'm like, well, is it a Titleist, or, is it Pro V1, or what is it? For those that golf, that's the type of golf ball. But, they said, well, no, it's a mass. And, they laughed, but, so, they said, we're going to need to get that out of there. And, so we'll probably have to have you come back for surgery. We can
Mm.
approach this in two ways. We can take a biopsy of it. We can, do one surgery where we basically drill a hole in your head and, biopsy it that way. Or what we can do is just have a craniotomy and just get it out, and then then biopsy it that way. But they said this thing it's about the same size and shape of a golf ball. It's pressing up against parts of your brain. And that's why you had a seizure. That's the only thing that really led to this discovery, is the fact that you had a seizure. So, and one thing I do want to mention is, it is May. It's the last day of May. May is brain tumor, brain cancer awareness month. So just, also thank you guys for inviting me on the last day of May to, spread some awareness about this stuff. But so that was my first stay in the hospital, and it was, quite the experience. It's not something that you want to go through. It's not something that you expect to ever have to go through. You don't ever want to put your wife through that. You don't ever want to put your family through that. But some things happen, and given the circumstance, I'm incredibly fortunate, incredibly blessed to just be here because I could have kept driving, I could have kept going through Bozeman Pass. And had I not turned around, I could have had a seizure while I was driving. And like I said, it's a treacherous pass, and there's lots of people that die every single year just going through that pass. And,
Hmm.
I could have just been another, single vehicle crash, single vehicle rollover, whatever it is in Montana. We have a lot of those as an insurance agent, that's a lot of the accidents that happen, they're just single vehicles. And they would have never thought to, do a brain scan, and it could have just left so many unanswered questions. So just, given that circumstance, I'm very grateful, just, fortunate to have everything play out the way that it did. So yeah, do you guys have any questions about that first part of the
Yeah, so
story?
I wanted to, I mean, obviously, because I remember, us you going, coming to the meeting and stuff like that. When I found out about it the next day, I was like, wow, that is just like seems so unreal,
Yeah.
right? But upon that discovery, I mean, what was going through your mind? What emotion were you going through, realizing that you've got this tumor the size of a golf ball, right? And they're going to do surgery, and to me, when I think of like brain surgery, man, I think that, man, you know that's there's there's I would think a high fatality rate. That's what I'm thinking. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
there's a good chance of that happening. So what was going through your mind? How were you processing this and stuff like that? If you could kind of share behind the scenes and so really help us get an insight.
Yeah, so, tons of questions just going through my mind, lots of like, well, how long has this been there? Like, what is this? Like, do we even know what it is? Like, is this even necessary? Like, are you sure that I need to get brain surgery? And the other scary part about it is, the doctor was like, given the location, it's on my left parietal lobe. That's kind of the speech area, of the brain. That's so it's a real delicate area of the brain. And so the doctor said, you're going to actually have to be awake during the surgery. We're going to keep you awake because we'll have to map out the brain. We want to make sure that if we cut it out, we're not also cutting out the parts of your brain that are responsible for your speech. We don't want you to be speechless. We don't want to cause more damage. So that was like, wow, okay, I'm going to be awake for this. This is intense. And I was reaching out for second opinions. I was talking to other doctors that I know, and one in particular who used to work for this clinic. I said, I'm gonna call him because, is this the right place that I want to do this? Like, there's other places to go that you can get brain surgery, and I want to get the best brain surgeon. So I actually reached out to him, and I said, hey, is this going to be a good place to do this? And he said, I will say, he said, the brain surgeons at Billings Clinic, there are some of the best. And
Mm.
especially the doctor that I had, Dr. Piedra, he is like top notch, so he did say, he's like, the only thing is, they're like the rock stars of the industry. So, they've got that type AA personality. And he
Mhm.
said, but that's what you want in your brain surgeon. You want the
Mhm.
ones that are like the AA go-getters personality. So he said,
Super
yeah,
confident, right? Like,
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
yeah, you gotta be, and so he said, yeah, you're in good hands. So they said, you'll have to come back April 9th. This was, March, kind of the end of March. So it gave me about almost 3 weeks to think about it. And I got to reach out to a lot of other people. I started to share my story on social media, and there were a lot of people that were just affected by my story. Just being, instead of, everybody's initial reaction is to be like, do I share this stuff with everybody? Because you've got your job, you've got your family, you've got life that you're trying to pursue, your goals, and you're like, gosh, I don't want to have to like share this thing. Sometimes it can be like a big derailment towards your goals, and like the last thing you want to share with anybody is like, gosh, I don't know if I can meet my goals because of this. But I decided,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna keep this to myself. I want to keep this. I want to share this. I want to get this out there because there could be other people that might have to go through this, or that might be going through this but are afraid to share their story. And so, I just made a point to get it out there. And let me just tell you, I mean, the amount of support from the community, just from friends, from family, total strangers, they just really came out and just gave me so much support and just so much encouragement that it's it's just one of those things that I was just like shocked by. I was like, oh my goodness, like the community is amazing, and just the support from people in the community is amazing. So yeah, so I started, just kind of preparing myself mentally for this. So that was a big help, I will say, is just reaching out. It just goes to show like how important community is. Obviously you guys are part of the creative finance community, and I mean, you guys know firsthand how important community is, because
Mhm.
you can use like collective knowledge and support to get you through some hard times. And when you have so many unanswered questions, it's just, just depend on, you can lean on the community. But yeah, so another thing that I shared during this time was, I didn't have life insurance. Me being an insurance agent, it's kind of ironic, but I'm only 35 years old. I'm pretty young. I thought I'm the lucky one actually, and despite even I had a brother-in-law who passed away 2 years ago, and then my brother actually passed away last year. From, let's see, my brother-in-law passed away from type 2 diabetes, and then my brother passed away from end-stage liver failure. But that was kind of due to their lifestyle, and
Mm.
myself, I've considered myself to be pretty healthy. And I
You're
just
a
thought,
fit guy.
thank you. Yeah, well, I was a competitive gymnast growing up. I uh, was always try to stay fit. I will say though that my nutrition wasn't there all the way. There are some things that I liked. I kind of was a junk food junkie. I liked ice cream. I liked pizza. But I was like, gosh, I'm the lucky one of my brothers. I was, you know, this something like this can't happen to me.
Mhm.
Um, but it just goes to show, you can never be too sure. Life is short. There's a lot of things, it can just be one drive, one phone call, one doctor visit, away from, your entire life being turned upside down, and you could be, staring death in the face. So I do want to use this opportunity to say, if you don't have life insurance, get life insurance. I do sell life insurance. I'm actually life licensed now. So that's one thing that I didn't, I mean, I did sell, but now I'm actually whole life, I can sell whole life policies now. But
So
yeah, if
Taylor,
you don't,
how much does that kind of stuff cost to get into? Is that like an expensive thing to get into, like 10 grand, 100 grand to get into for that kind
it
of thing?
It really depends. If you're looking at a term life insurance policy, if you're young, the younger you are, the less expensive it is. So, if you're 18, 19, 20 years old, you're probably going to pay like, I don't know, maybe 20 bucks a month. And that's for probably, anywhere from half a million to $1 million life insurance policy. If you're, getting up towards like your 30s, you're going to pay a little bit more. You're probably looking at paying maybe $50 a month. And then, of course, as you get older, uh, it gets more expensive. So,
Okay.
another thing too is, a lot of people, they have life insurance policies through their work. And that's not always the best route, because if you leave, you can't take that with you. So uh, you may have paid into your life insurance policy. You may have worked for this company for, 10 years. Maybe you start out when you're 25, and then you decide to, move on to pursue your, maybe a better career, or different career, or better job. And now all of a sudden you're 35, and you leave that job, and that life insurance policy doesn't go with you. So it's always good to get your own life insurance policy, one that's not going to go away if you leave your job. But that's a great question. But obviously you can hit me up, let me know if you guys are looking for some policies. I'd be happy to give you guys some quotes. But yeah, so that was kind of the in between while I'm waiting to get brain surgery. Do you guys have any other questions before I get into the brain surgery part?
Yeah, and I think that's it for me. You have anything, Jeremy?
No, I just love to hear that story because you made a Facebook group that I'm a part of, and it's called the Overview Effect. And that story you told me of why you called it that, I'd love to hear that story again because it was
Yeah.
pretty incredible.
Yeah. So thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you're a part of that group. Um, so the overview effect is it's a phenomenon that that astronauts experience their very first time looking back at Earth from orbit. And most, if not all, astronauts actually describe having this phenomenon, this feeling of, perspective, putting everything into perspective, like uh, every event in history, every ruler, every king, every person that's ever walked this earth, you know, they've all been contained to this little blue rock, right? And so I had a very similar experience, and we'll just get into that with brain surgery. So, fast forward to the day of the surgery. It's very nerve-wracking getting ready for all of this, but I've always been kind of a positive person. I'm an optimist, and so I've just went into it feeling pretty good actually. Um, I will say, even though this is a pretty scary diagnosis, one thing that I was incredibly grateful for is the fact that it was me. It was this is something that I have to take on, instead of like my wife, or I mean, they're obviously taking this on with me, but if my child, or if my daughter, or if my wife, if they got this diagnosis, or if they got this, they were told that they have this, I don't know how I would handle that. As a man, as a husband, as a father,
Mhm.
I think we're prepared to take on some of these things like head on. That's
Mhm.
kind of what we do. We just take this stuff head on, no pun intended. But we uh so that's one thing I was very grateful for. My daughter actually had to go and get some of her teeth fixed, and they had to put her under because she's so young. And I was more nervous about that than me having to go through this brain surgery. But anyway, so I in the operating room, they wheel you back, and there's like, a team of like 12, 15 people, doctors, nurses, assistants, all there, and they're kind of wheeling you back, and it's just real somber. You feel like you're getting wheeled into your funeral, and I'm like, gosh, it's real somber in here, and I'm like, I got to lighten things up a little bit. So uh I get wheeled back there, and I talk to the doctors. I'm like, so doc, you have to play this where it lies, and uh, you know, the doctor, I guess, made the mistake of saying it's actually like the size and shape of a golf ball. And so I'm a golfer, but so I just kind of took that and ran with it. But, I'm like, you got to play it where it lies. And, he's like, haha, like that's funny. And like, so what are you thinking? Like, a 9-iron or like a pitching wedge? And so then one of the nurses in the corner, laughed and, chuckled a little bit. And I was like, oh, okay, nice. I got one to laugh. And but the doc's just, getting ready. And, I can only imagine what the doc is going through as well. I'm sure he's nervous, even though he does this all the time. Um, but I'm like, nah, I gotta get him to laugh, and so I'm like, well, I guess you're gonna slice it either way, like, and you know what a slice is, you cut it, whatever. But so then he finally laughed. He got the whole team to start laughing, and they relaxed a little bit. But I went into it with just a lot of faith. I am a believer. I'm a Christian, and I just God has gotten me through a lot of situations in my life that I didn't think I would, maybe make it out of. So I just put a lot of faith, a lot of trust in Him, and there had to been a reason for me to live through that first experience, the first part of my journey. And so I'm like, there's got to be a reason for this. So I just kind of accepted it and trusted, the people, the doctors that God put in my life, and so let's get this done. Let's do it. So they started to prepare me. Um, you know, they put me into kind of like a relaxed state. And then they actually, you have to screw your head down. They have to put these like screws in your head basically to keep you from moving, because last thing you want to do is like move your head while the doctor is trying to operate.
Hmm.
So, I'm laying there and I can feel them, kind of working on me. And, um, the I'm fascinated by this whole thing. And so I'm just like talking to the doc. I'm like, hey doc, can
Because
you
you're
kind of like,
awake the whole time
yeah,
during
wake the
this?
whole time. Yeah, wake the whole time. And so I'm like, doc, can you walk me through what you're doing? Like, I'm pretty fascinated by this. Can you just tell me what you're doing? And so he explained the process. He explained to me, like, this is what I'm doing. Obviously he's got a whole bunch of power tools. And during that time, when they finally, basically what they do is they cut a hole, take off part of your skull, set it aside, and uh, they're asking me questions. There's a nurse. They have like kind of this Palm Pilot, and it's got like words on it, and it's like, what's 1 + 1, asking me like math questions. They're like, what do you like to cook your wife for dinner? What's your dog's name? That stuff. And so I'm just like, this is fascinating. And the doc was like, hey, do you want to see your brain? And I was like, yeah, of course, like absolutely.
Wow.
And so one of the nurses had her phone, and she pulled it out and turned it into selfie mode. And so actually, I got to look at my brain, and it going back to the overview effect, I had my own overview effect. Instead of looking back and looking at Earth from orbit, I was actually, looking at my brain from the outside. I don't know how many people can say that they've actually seen their living, pulsing brain, and
Yeah.
have lived to tell the story. But it really put things into perspective. It's just that's really what this is about. What the overview effect is about is just, putting everything into perspective. And, after that, I was like, oh my goodness, I literally had kind of an out of body experience. And so, after that, I was like, doc, can you put me to sleep? I think I want to go to sleep now. And he said, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we're pretty much done. So, we can put you to sleep. We'll get, and so I woke up in my recovery room, and it was just, I had a completely different outlook on life. I just
Mm.
had a huge shift in perspective. Um, and it just puts everything into perspective. It made me realize, how important community is, people are. It's just, I just have a whole new outlook on life. And especially being an insurance agent, it really puts my role in people's lives in a new light. And it just really drove it home how important, people are. And yes, we all go after our goals. There's a lot of things that we can get wrapped up in. We kind of all get caught up in this rat race of life. And it's like, gosh, life is so short. What are the really important things in life?
Mhm.
There's so many trivial just things that we can get caught up in, we can kind of get in our own head about, like worry about. But at the end of the day, it's, life is short. Go after your purpose, find your purpose, and, maybe get out of the rat race sometimes. Take a little bit of time to slow down and reach out to the people that are important in your life. Um, and yeah, it was quite the experience. But I guess here I'll just kind of show you. I don't know if you guys can see the scar, but
Oh,
it's
yeah.
can you? Okay. Yeah, it's a pretty
Yeah.
pretty gnarly scar, But I wear my scars like, like rings, or, like tattoos, I wear them with pride. But uh yeah, so I was in the recovery room. They put me in the ICU. That's just kind of standard protocols. They put you in the ICU while you're recovering. And, the doctors, the speech pathologists came in and they said, you are doing shockingly well. You're doing so well. We can't even keep you in the hospital anymore. So they actually kicked me out of the hospital after 2 days. And I'm like, you sure about that? Like, you sure I can't just stay another day? And they're like, well, you could, but it's not a hotel. We've got other people that, need the beds. And I'm like, well, I know there's a hotel across the street, so I'm going to go and stay at the hotel across the street. So yeah, I ended up staying in this hotel room across the street from the hospital for about 5 days while I was in recovery still. And it gave me a lot of time to think. It was away from the wife and kids, and it was just me in this hotel room, recovering, and put gave me a lot of time to think about my life, about the people in my life. I had a lot of old friends reaching out to me, had a lot of just people in the community, complete strangers reaching out to me, and I just got to connect with people, and it was an awesome experience just getting to connect with people. But yeah, that's kind of the long short of it. Kind of the first part of my journey. Do you guys have any questions about that?
I'd love to ask because like this is investing with Keto Show. Like this is like we're talking about investing, real estate, business, how to save and get out of the rat race is kind of like the idea to have a lifestyle that's fruitful and good and the one that you want to create. So in that perspective that you've had, did that reinforce the need to invest and get out of the rat race, or did it actually like quell it to be like, you know what, that's actually not important. I really want to focus on family, friends, lifestyle, and just like be part of work and do what I do. Like, how has that been a perspective for you?
Yeah, so it really did. It hit me, it hit me hard when I realized I didn't have life insurance. So I'm like, gosh, what is my family going to do if I die, or, what would have happened if I died? Um, so, for me personally now, I can't get life insurance now. Um, so one thing that I'm extremely grateful for is just an opportunity to not just have, a 401k or just, a W-2, but the fact that I am the decider of my fate and my family's fate ultimately. So now I'm looking at investing, like real estate, buying real estate as a life insurance policy. So I'd say it's the best life insurance policy. It's a way for you to provide for your family and to provide for yourself, obviously, but also to leave a legacy, to leave something that can cash flow for your family, for yourself. If you're ever to pass away, um, there's lots of talk in the community about setting up a trust. Um, so that's one thing. I'm just grateful to know, you know, guys such as yourself, a lot of people in the community, and so we actually decided, we've been around this community for a couple of years now, and we've seen how many people's lives have been changed throughout just this whole process. So we're like, okay, we need to jump in. So we finally decided to jump in 2 months ago. So we are now focusing on building our portfolio. That's a big part of this. Um, but yeah, getting out of the rat race, that's a big, that's an important part. Like if I had to go and just clock in every single day and it was, working towards somebody else's goals, somebody else's, just, I don't know. I worked out in the oil and gas industry for a long time, and I just remember like, feeling like, gosh, I'm just really contributing to somebody else's dreams, but not mine so much.
Hmm.
So I had to get out of that, especially once we started having kids. I was like, I just really want to go after my dreams, my goals. So that's when we opened our business, our agency. And I will say, yes, while I would like to step away from, doing insurance all the time, we're building this business. Sometimes I work 16-hour days building this business. It's 7 days a week. It's tough, but I think just what I'm doing is extremely rewarding, because it is helping people prepare. It's helping people build, kind of safeguard their lives and their wealth, and so it's a little bit different. I get a great opportunity to connect with people every single day. I get a great opportunity to just ask people, who's in your life? What does your family situation look like? What can I do to help, you protect your way of living? So I'm extremely fortunate that I'm in the line of work that I am. But if it was anything else, there's a couple other things I would probably do too, but I do want to have more free time. As much as
Hmm.
I love my job, I'm also wanting to get out there and connect with people in other ways. I'd like to spend more time with my family. It really, like I said, just puts things into perspective. But investing, is a huge part of that. As Quito can tell you, he's been able to probably, I mean, Quito, he's living the American dream. His journey, his story is extremely inspiring. And my gosh, just look at what he's been able to accomplish um, through investing. And he's a big inspiration. Quito, you're a big inspiration for me. I hope you know that. Just
Thank
your
you.
story is very inspiring. Jeremy, your story is very inspiring as well. You're
Appreciate it.
able to provide for your family, and congratulations, by the way, on graduating seminary school.
Thanks. Yeah, it feels good. I haven't quite had the nice ease out of it yet. I haven't felt that, but I hopefully it's coming. So, but it's
Yeah,
nice not to have things due tomorrow. So,
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know. We all want to kind of get to a position in life where we can have more time, right? Where we can
Hmm.
really get the chance to enjoy the time that we have left. But
mhm.
yeah, that's a great point. Thank you, Jeremy.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing, man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's awesome, and that's the thing too. When you go through that, it's so important, realizing that, obviously, a lot life is precious. We're limiting time because we don't know what's going to happen, But when we get, whether like just even having some kind of policy, term life or whole life, just something to safeguard you in case something does happen.
Yeah, that's super important.
Absolutely, yeah. It's very important to have insurance. It's funny, when I was going through college, I was having to pay for my vehicle insurance, and I'm like, gosh, this is hard to pay for this, especially while you're just a college student living off of ramen. I used to think that insurance was a scam. And so, but now it's ironically enough, I'm an insurance agent, and it's one of those things that is extremely important to have, because you never know when you're going to need it. And, it's one of those things you're like, gosh, why am I paying for this? But once you have it and you do need it, it's important. But did we lose
Mhm.
Keto? Let's see.
I think Keto froze, and I think he'll be right back. So
Okay.
we'll see.
Okay, cool. But yeah, so yeah, Jeremy, tell me a little bit about what it's like now that you're graduated. Are you getting to are you focus a little bit more on your investing, or I know you have your business. What are you doing now? What are some of your goals?
It's a great question. Um, yeah, so I've been in seminary the last 3.5 years of my life. So I've just been doing school and haven't had I don't have a bachelor's degree, so they get a master's degree is pretty awesome. So it's
Mhm.
pretty creative to like have a master's degree without a bachelor's degree, and that, obviously increases my knowledge, my what my time's worth, and things like that. So I guess personally, I'm coming to a kind of perspective shift as well. Hey, Keto, welcome back.
Hey, Keto.
Hey, sorry about that. My phone, it was overheating.
Oh,
So,
it's sitting in the sun.
All
Yeah.
right, man.
oh
Well,
yeah,
good.
so I apologize for that. So, where did I left? Where did I leave off? I get distracted.
You're
Um,
good.
but yeah,
Taylor's asking me what it's like to graduate seminary and be done with like a graduate degree program. And I think I was kind of like Taylor, where I'm in a new perspective. Like, okay, so I'm turning 30 in June. I just graduated. We got two kids. We got a business. I got work, and I have a new I guess I have like a ton of avenues I could go down. And so trying to even like kind of like what you said, Taylor, like how do I want to live my life? And Keith, you kind of asked that question too. It's like, what if you start with lifestyle, how you want to live, how you want your family to be, what you want to do with your life, and then work backwards? That kind of determines what you
mhm.
do. And so for me, it's trying to figure that out now because I've been so busy just like cranking out papers, doing lectures, reading books. I haven't had time to just like think about that kind of stuff as much. So it's a little overwhelming to be honest, but I think it's a good place to be because then obviously if I want to create a certain lifestyle, what I want my life to be about, then you have to work backwards and then that determines what I do. So I'm in a season like that. So after this, I'm going to go take the day off and kind of get alone and write and journal and kind of plan and think like what do I want my life to be about? But it's always kind of that back of investing. Like Keto's life looks really attractive to go drop off your wife at the gym and go to you know, go to Vegas frequently and enjoy those kind of things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's just my daughter. She's in the back. She went to the gym with
Hi.
my wife. So, so yeah.
Well, great.
So yeah. So Taylor, getting back to you about your journey. Obviously, you've gone through. At a young age, you know, having brain tumor, lots of unquestioned answer. I'm so glad that you had the surgery. Now you're back. You're rebuilding. So what's next? What's going on now?
Yeah. So, you know, after the surgery, well, I recovered so well after the surgery. S- and I think I can only really count, credit my positivity for some of that, because even the doctors we're shocked at how well you're doing. Sometimes people come out of these surgeries and they can't speak, they can't talk. They've got vision problems or, mental problems. But, even given that it was in the left parietal lobe, the speech function of my brain, I'm still able to articulate my words, I guess. And just, so I'm very grateful for that. But um, I was waiting for the results of my biopsy, and
So
so there was like 2 weeks, 3 weeks there of just like, you know, nice, we made it through this. Like, the doctor said he was able to remove 90% of the brain tumor. And I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? And he said, well, we'll find out. It could be a category 2, it could be a category 3. Brain tumor, we aren't quite sure yet, but here's kind of what it'll look like if it is a category 2. Here's what it could look like if it is a category 3. And so, we were hoping for a category 2, but turns out the pathology report came back and it is a category 3. So, what does that mean? Well, it means that I have brain cancer. So it's kind of an aggressive type of brain cancer. It's actually called an anaplastic astrocytoma with an IDH1 mutation. And that's actually, the doctor told me that, and I'm like, okay, cool. He didn't even say the C word. He didn't say cancer. So I actually had to go home and Google what's an anaplastic astrocytoma, with a IDH1 mutation. And of course, it's never good to consult Dr. Google. So, I see cancer and I'm like, oh my goodness. Okay. So I have brain cancer.
Mm.
And the original prognosis that I saw online is that I have 11 months to 5 years to live. And so, for a week there, I was just distraught, just kind of in shock.
Mhm.
And not so much like, oh my goodness, like my life is over, this type of thing, but it's more or less it was a motivator for me. It was like, okay, now we really got to buckle down. Now we really got to go after the things that are very important, that mean a lot to me, and my family. And but at the same time, like you have those moments of clarity where you just slow down, and you just look around, you sit outside. We're entering, spring, well, summer almost. And
Mhm.
so, we live in a beautiful part of the state. So there's a lot of times, out on the back porch that I just look out, look at the mountains, especially during sunset. And I'm just grateful for every single day that I have.
Mhm.
Um, and I finally actually, I got interviewed by a local news channel. And I actually, it's funny, I got to talk to my doctor, my neurosurgeon, because they were kind of recreating like us being in the doctor's office. And
That's fun.
the journalist was like, okay, this is where we're gonna get some B-roll where you guys are just like acting, right? Where you guys are like fake talking about this. And I'm like, forget that. I'm gonna really ask some questions. So I got kind of a free hour of like, consultation with my doctor, where I got to ask the hard questions because I did a lot of research. That's something that I like to do is, I'm somebody that I'm kind of an autodidact where I like to research and do as much general understanding of things as I can. Um, and I put it out there. I joined a support group on Facebook. It's brain tumor, brain cancer awareness, and support on Facebook. And I put my pathology report out there. I was just like, hey, what does this mean? Because they give you like, you have an IK 67 score, you have an IDH1, like what does that mean? And uh, a guy hopped on there and he said, this is almost exactly what my wife has, like to the T. We've been battling this for 12 years. And,
Mhm.
so I'm like, whoa, okay. So 12 years, I thought, my original prognosis was 11 months to 5 years. And he said, no, he's like, don't consult that. He said, one thing I want you to know is that like that prognosis is not your prognosis. That prognosis includes, every age group, every, everybody, whether they have insurance or don't have insurance. So he said, basically, this is what you have is like best case scenario for a category 3. He said, in fact, I would call this a category 2 with a category 3 component. And the only component that makes it a category 3 is that it has what's called, mitosis, where it's spreading, but at a very slow rate. So, a category 2 tumor spreads anywhere from 1% to 5%. And then category 3 is 5% to 10%. Anything beyond that is a category 4. But mine's at 5%. So my IK 67 score, it's called, is at 5%. So he said, this is actually best case scenario for what you have. And the fact that you have that IDH1 mutation, that's what a lot of clinical trials are targeting. So he said there's actually one drug that's in the fourth round, the fourth stage of clinical trials, and he said that's very promising. So he said, don't let that discourage you. Don't let this prognosis discourage you. There's a lot of things coming out every single day. And in fact, I got to ask my doctor about all these things. And going back to when I was talking with him in the doctor's room for this interview, um I hit him with all these questions. I'm like, so what does this mean? What's my real prognosis? And I think he was really blown away by how much I knew, because even the journalist was like, wow, you guys were talking and I didn't understand a thing you guys were talking about, but you got him going. Like, because he loves this stuff too. He does something like 60 brain surgeries a year.
Wow.
That's a lot, and he knows his
Yeah.
stuff. He's like the best in Montana. And so I got to talk to him and I was like, what does this mean? And he said, well, like, obviously you've been doing some research and it sounds like you kind of know your stuff, but yeah, he said those prognoses, they're outdated. They need to be updated. There's a lot of things coming out on the market, especially with AI. I mean, there's stuff. I mean, AI is able to take large, extremely large data sets that humans, we couldn't necessarily track, but AI is able to even take MRI images now and tell you what kind of tumor it is without having to do a biopsy, with like 80% accuracy. So there's just, it's a great time. It's what a time to be alive. It's there's
Hmm.
a lot of advances being made, but so I guess uh, from here, they want me to do chemo, they want me to do radiation, that IDH1 mutation. That what that means is it can be affected by chemo and radiation. So there's another type, which is an IDH wild type, and that means that chemo and radiation is ineffective. Um, so I'm grateful for that. Given my prognosis, given my diagnosis, it's again, another thing that it's like, gosh, like even though it's not ideal, it's best case scenario for my situation. So, just really trying to go back to living life, one day at a time. You kind of it's funny how fast I got back into the rat race after surgery. It was like, you know, uh, the world doesn't stop, the world doesn't
Yeah.
wait. And it's
Yep.
like, I have clients hitting me up and they're like, okay, you had brain surgery, that's good, you're recovered now, but can we get back to like my insurance thing? It's like, yeah, absolutely, so it's
Oh, wow.
life comes at you fast, and it's easy to get pulled back into that rat race. So this diagnosis that I got kind of was like a reminder of like, okay, like don't be so quick to just jump back into the rat race. Like, you know, make some time for yourself, make some time for your family. Jeremy, like you're doing, you're taking time to journal. That's one thing that I've started to do is
Mhm.
just put my thoughts to paper, and it's been so valuable. Like it really, keeping things in perspective, not just putting things into perspective, but keeping things in perspective has just been, um, it's kind of a habit that I'm trying to get into, and it helps. So,
Mhm.
while yes, it's good that we go after our goals, remember, you have to take some time for yourself, for your family. Stop and smell the flowers every once in a while. Go for a walk. Get out in nature and just enjoy life.
Mhm.
And if your goal, especially with investing, is to have more time with your family, then figure out what you have to do to make those goals happen. Don't wait, especially if you're somebody that's kind of been on the sidelines, that's like, I'm thinking about investing, but I just don't know where to start. Just do it. Just start, and you'll learn. So it's one of those things. You just gotta, all of our days are numbered. That's the one thing that's guaranteed in life is, from the moment that you take your first breath, you will have a moment in your life where you take your last breath. And
Mhm.
but hopefully you have a lot of breaths in between. And just take the time to breathe, take the time to really enjoy life, and you know just figure out what your goals are, figure out what your purpose for being is. That's another thing I discovered in this, through this journey, is that I do have a story, that I'm on this journey, that it can affect a lot of people. Um, but I'm just, it's my story isn't even all that cool, compared to a lot of people. I've met a lot of people whose stories are way more compelling, whose stories are just way more impactful than mine. It's just, I'm just the guy that decided to, hey, I'm going to share this with people. But I'd encourage everyone, anybody who's watching this, to just, think, what's my story? What do I have that, that I could offer the world? And you'd be surprised. You might think that you're just, just a normal person with no, uninteresting, whatever. But, I believe that, every person that you meet, you can learn something from, but, I'll take that a step further. And I believe that every person you meet actually has a story or, can share their journey in a way that has, can affect somebody's life. It has the ability to not just change somebody's life, maybe save somebody's life as well. Um, so try to figure out what that is. You've all got your own stories. Quito has got an incredibly inspiring story. Jeremy, you have an incredibly inspiring story. And just write about it, get it out there, just really, I don't know, take the time to figure that out, and
Hmm.
don't wait, because you never know. You could get one, your one phone call, one doctor's visit, one drive away from, the time clock actually starting. But we should live our lives like we're dying, because we all are. you know, we're
Hmm.
we're we never know our day. But yeah, again, I just want to thank you guys for just allowing me, giving me a platform to share my story, to share my journey. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing your journey. I mean, it's very inspiring what you're going through. I mean, it does definitely take a lot of strength, right? Like in your strength, just knowing that. I mean, like we know when the day we were born, we're gonna take our last breath soon, but with just something like you, I mean, there's that more uncertainty because you know that it's coming sooner than later than what we think. So
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
want to acknowledge you for your courage, just for sharing that story, and just for giving us a reminder, of how precious life is, and how that you shouldn't wait on the sideline to go after the things that you want out of life, to go and pursue it. So
Hmm.
thank you, Taylor. I'm honored to call you a friend, and not only as a business partner, but just thank you for who you are.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate it, Keto. You've been extremely helpful in our journey. You've been a huge part of our journey. I can't tell you, when we first started our agency, this is the hardest insurance market in history. It was hard getting our start. It wasn't easy, and you kind of helped keep us afloat, while we were getting our while we were starting
Put your
our
clothes away. Can I
agency.
take your bed?
And
I already paid that.
so just thank you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you as an investor, considering me your friend, and just with your story, just, thank you for, it's an honor for me to be a part of your life, yours and Jeremy's. But you guys teach me something every single day. And that's what I love about this community. That's what I love about knowing you guys, working with you guys, is you teach me something every single day. So, likewise, it's,
Hmm.
it's, it's,
Fun.
it's
All
been an
right.
honor.
Well, thank you. All right. Well, Jeremy, any last words?
No, it's great. Thanks, Taylor, again, sharing your story. Appreciate you, man. You encourage me and hopefully you encourage a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. And if anybody wants to get a hold of me, my phone number, you can call me, text me directly. It's 406 580 Again, I'm Taylor Honaker. You can go to the Facebook group is just called the Overview Effect, putting everything into perspective. But yeah, I would encourage anybody that wants to hear more, just connect, to reach out. I'd be happy to talk.
Great.
All right. Thank you. And thanks, everybody, for joining us with another episode. We'll see you next time.